Hey, it's Soul with another video, and I'm going to take you through the hard mode version of the Underpin encounter. The Underpin fight is about three things. It's about spatial awareness, aim, and burst damage. By the end, you'll know what you need to know to barely scrape by, because that's exactly how I did it at the bare minimum. Please like the video, subscribe for more WoW coverage, and catch me whenever I'm live. This is an intermediate level guide that assumes you're familiar with the regular version of the fight, and well, it's not so different anyway, it's just tighter. Comparing this to Zekfir, the Underpin fight leans away from needing a certain mastery over your class abilities, and it's more of a challenge to more fundamental gameplay skills. So it's a more straightforward encounter of dealing damage at the right time, avoiding mechanics, and awareness as the battlefield changes. The footage I'm using comes from me as a protection paladin, but the overall behavior of the fight is mostly the same. I'll point out the distinctions. Let's jump right in with some preparation. Item level, as always, it's king. While the fight is doable at different levels depending on your class and spec, the higher the item level, the better always. I happen to have an item level of 650 as a tank, with gear that unfortunately isn't really itemized for dealing damage at all, but I made the most of it. I also didn't use food or other buffs because, to be honest, they fell off during my attempts, and I forgot. You'll want to spec your class for dealing fairly high burst once each minute. Check your talents and abilities to find short cooldowns you can slam every minute or space them out so you can have a strong button to press at every interval. Trinkets can also help in case you're in need of another burst ability. I happen to use Cersei's Circlet, and in my case I used Thunderlords for the direct damage to the boss, and also Mariner and Old Salt to help healing both myself and Bran. Long-term buffs like hearty food and flasks are more than welcome. Potions also help, but they're not going to be quite as effective with how this fight works. Just like your item level, a higher level brand can't hurt. More important though are the curios you're sporting. You want to go for having rank 4 on whatever it is you decide to use. For combat curios, in my experience, the Mechasaur is by far the most effective, even though the damage might not be happening when it's most needed. The bouncing grenade is a more steady alternative. Under utility curios, I focused on the bioprinter for dealing what's basically damage over time. The biofuel rocket gear isn't bad either. It gives lots of movement speed as long as you're dropping adds before the debuff wears off. And Loot Raider is also, it's not bad for a passive DPS bonus. No matter what you choose, you'll have a much better time using rank 4 curios, so if you're running short, you'll want to jump back into delves in hopes of upgrades. Don't forget you can unleash the alt army to speed that process up. As said, the encounter is very similar to normal mode. You want to dodge the flamethrower, you want to dodge the leap, and you want to dodge the swirlies he lays down. Defeat the crony mobs quickly by kicking bombs towards them, and otherwise be aware of the big old lines they draw and the giant projectile you need to avoid. And finally, you need to break the shield when it's cast each time it's up. There's some key differences. 5 crony mobs now spawn at a time, making it much harder to keep up with downing them all before you're overwhelmed. Tanks happen to have the easiest time with this mechanic, as they only need to use 2 bombs to destroy adds, while other roles will need 3. While this gets really scary with multiple lines to dodge, bringing down one more mob, it's actually not that big of a difference due to how large the bomb explosions are. Instead, the challenge is in pre-positioning. You're trying to ensure that adds spawn in sort of the same place, so you can destroy them all with fewer bombs. And also with more health, the shield is harder to break, and the timer to break the shield is shorter. Alright, so let's get you through the fight. This is still a 2-phase fight of survival and ad management, then a short burn phase. From the start of the fight to pretty much the end, you want to keep the boss to a side whenever possible. Now, it's toughest to do this if you're healing with Tank Brand, so you'll need to instead get used to his routine. From full health down to 80%, he goes through his rotation of abilities, including summoning adds, but will only activate his shield when he is both at 80% health and his energy bar is full. That means we can prep the fight just a little bit towards our favor. With the Bioprint Curio in mind, as the boss first calls his adds, you want to destroy all but one of them, and then bring that last add down to 40% health to make the Bioprint Curio spawn clones of this add. A few good whacks should produce the 2 bioprints. The boss isn't using his shield mechanic yet, so now is this best time to do it, and the bioprints will stay on the boss for the remainder of the fight, helping with overall damage, including the shield phase. Tanks are actually going to have the hardest time with this particular step because with bombs they tend to two-shot these mobs from 100% to 50 to 0%, and it takes some luck to have adds that happen to survive 2 hits. Alternatively, they can bring an ad down to 50% and then DPS them down manually, which is kind of annoying, but it's an important initial step to make the rest of the fight easier. With that step done, you want to DPS the boss down to close to 80%. He'll already be at full energy by this time, and what you're waiting for is an ideal time to push this first shield phase, as this is going to be the only chance you get. All ads ought to be dead, there should be no bombs nearby, and your cooldowns ought to be available. So at 80%, he's going to start casting the shield, and right when it appears, pop cooldowns, maybe even bloodlust and cooldown pots, and burn down the shield. After hitting this phase the first time, he's going to do another shield phase every minute until the fight's over. That's why you want to mostly focus your damage during the shield phase while cleaning the battlefield and managing your position, so when the next minute's up, there's only a minimal number of ads and bombs to deal with while breaking the shield. There's going to be opportunities where you want to consider popping cooldowns during the non-shield phase, and it's up to you. I first suggest getting the routine down before trying to modify this kind of 1 minute cooldown strat. Also remember that after a shield phase, he'll drop oil under him that persists throughout the encounter. This sort of works against the idea of keeping the boss on the side of the room because eventually you might be fighting around oil, but you also have the whole room to use. As you're defeating crony mobs, do your best to immediately move to more open areas where no mob corpses are present. Now this is going to mean less uptime on boss damage, or even worse, he might immediately do a flamethrower, which in this case you can just keep running away from. It doesn't have an unlimited range. Even if you're not doing constant damage to the boss, don't worry about it so much, it's not that kind of fight. As the boss summons more ads, his position can easily cause a split of where the mobs are, like maybe 4 are in front of you, but 1 might be across the map with no good way of getting to them. So in this case, do you try to get them all, or do you just add more dodging to your routine so you can make your way back around? Those are the considerations you'll be making during this phase, avoiding mechanics while keeping the field clear, while Bran actually does a majority of the damage. That's why the Mechasaur Curio is so effective here. Bran still can get hurt, so if you can off-heal, that always helps, or you can configure your Cersei circlet the way I mentioned earlier. There will be regular occasions where the Underpin does his leap attack towards Bran's location instead of yours, which might make him go really far away, or towards oil or corpses, but this actually works out to help buy yourself some time to reposition to a clear area, maybe get some heals off if you're low. The time to worry is if he happens to do a big leap while close to full energy. But anyway, when the minute's up and the boss's energy is at max, he'll complete whatever cast he's doing and then ramp up the shield. Just like in normal, if the shield isn't broken, he'll heal for 25% of his health. So this fight's going to be slow. It's about maintaining control of a large field, and you'll use it all while focusing your burst during shield phases. That's pretty much the routine until the boss is dead. I got a few things to add. A lot of this fight, as you know, involves kicking bombs towards mobs. I have 2 little tips for this. One is to use the interact key for this fight. Just open the menu, go to options, and the interact key configurations are right there in front of you. It allows you to assign a keystroke to the interact action, as in looting mobs, or talking to NPCs, or picking up objects, and in this case, kicking bombs. Map this to a very easy to reach key, and just practice. Take some time to develop your method. I notice if I'm aiming a bomb and it's a little bit off, I might risk overcompensating if I were to move sharply to the left or to the right. It's not a bad idea to maybe walk backwards a few steps to make very slight adjustments to your angle, and hopefully you don't outrange the bomb. As you make attempts, you'll start to develop an instinct of avoiding the molten cannons from the ads. This will take practice, and at first you'll hesitate to cross lines, and you're probably going to get nailed more than a few times too. Embrace it though, and learn from it. Eventually you'll gain a sort of kind of peripheral vision, an instinct that, yes, it's safe to cross. There's going to be times where you mess up or you fudge a cooldown, and the boss is going to get a cast off and will recover health. It's discouraging, but it's not a wipe. You can keep going. You're sort of fighting the same phase over and over, the exception being oil filling the floor. And one more reminder, outside of the burst needed to crack the boss's shield and interrupt his heal, this fight is all about controlling the field and avoiding mechanics. Bran is likely going to deal the majority of damage here. Your job is to survive and help him out when needed. Make use of the entire room as robot corpses start to line up, and although those despawn, oil does not. That about wraps everything up, but if you have questions, especially if you play from a different point of view like a caster or a healer, let us know. Some of you who might have other perspectives to share, hey, let us know your experiences too, especially if I missed something or if you have some better ideas. Please like the video, subscribe for more WoW coverage, catch me live, and I'll catch you later. Stay safe, stay healthy, and stay breezy.